Hey everybody, welcome to After the Fact. This is a brand new show that I'm starting with my good friend AJ. Hello AJ, how you doing?
I am fan-diddly-tastic. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well as well. This is a show where we're going to be talking about how our initial reactions were to some of our favorite TV shows, movies, songs and stuff, video games, depending on what comes up. And we've had time to, let it simmer, digest, and think about it more before we come up with or we start doing discussions and stuff. Me and AJ both were podcast hosts. We've known each other for almost like 6-7 years.
I want to say our earliest messages are like early 2016.
Okay, so 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
So I can math. And we've been doing a lot of things together. We've done discussions before, both on when I've been streaming, but we also have done a podcast called Patch Day,
which is a lot of fun, by the way.
Which was a lot of fun. We ended that unfortunately a couple years ago, but we wanted to do something again together because we do like talking to each other. We riff off each other very well, so this is what we're doing. Hope you like it.
Basically, he's good at coming up with ideas, and I'm good at talking about bullshit.
Yeah, and if you don't like it, well, screw you. No. All right. So since I didn't get to fully react to it when it first came out, I feel like our first episode is probably fitting that it is about WandaVision. Or as they say in the show, WandaVision. I can't sing it at the moment, but
that's pretty much it.
Yeah, this is the first entry into Marvel Phase 4 and the first Marvel produced television series ever to be released and actually executive produced by Kevin Feige in the MCU. And before someone says, no, what about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Was not produced by Kevin Feige and is actually, unfortunately, considered not canon.
And did anyone actually watch that?
Yeah, people watched it. I enjoyed...
I didn't know it was a thing until like last year, I'll be honest.
Well, I enjoyed the first 4 or 5 seasons of it, and then I think there was a lot. It started as a
what even happened?
It started as a regular full series order kind of deal where it was on every I don't remember what day. It was like Wednesday or Thursday, and it was in a primetime slot, and it was like that for the first few years. Then it got moved to Friday, which is where unfortunately shows go to die, which is unfortunate. But it held on, and then it eventually turned into a summer series, which I might be wrong on that, but for when it was on, it still had its own good story. And from what I've heard from discussions from New Rockstars and Real Rejects, they said when it did pivot away from the MCU, being faithful to the MCU timeline, it actually ended up being better.
Right.
Which I mean, I didn't get to watch too much of it, so I can't really, elaborate too much. But we're not here talking about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're talking about
sorry,
WandaVision.
I kind of derailed us a little bit there.
No, it's totally fine. That's what the discussion is here for. But yeah, so WandaVision, holy crap. If there was any way to start off a freaking phase, I don't know if you would start off with sitcoms, but I'm glad they did.
I like how it threw a lot of people off. I think I tweeted after the very first episode that WandaVision is doing exactly what it wants to do. Because after the first 2 episodes, people were like, what the fuck is this? What's going on? I'm like, that's exactly what they want. They want that. They want to be sowing the seeds of intrigue. Because, Scarlet Witch, we'll get into this later as we talk about what actually happens, and I'm going to spoil it yet. But for who these characters are, that kind of shenanigans and mystique made sense.
Yes. Mystique? Is Mystique here? Is Mystique in this season? I'm just kidding. I know. That's another thing we're going to talk about in this series, because there was a lot of theories that came out. And I know you're not too familiar with the fan theories and the YouTuberverse and stuff, but strap in. It'll be fun.
Okay, I'll be along for the ride.
So, just to give some credits real quick, this stars Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany as Wanda Maximoff and Vision, respectively, and was also directed by Matt Shakman, and head writer was Jack Schaefer. This series had a full 9 episodes for this series, and despite some people's wishes, it doesn't look like there's going to be a season 2, and I'm glad that there's probably not going to be one, because it's the last episode was called the series finale. I think that's pretty definitive of there's not going to be another WandaVision season.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty torn here because I am very much one of those people who says don't keep dragging out a show just for the sake of it. You know, if it came to a logical conclusion, let it end. But I feel like there's a lot they left open. You know what I mean? And sure, they could tie it into other properties because Marvel does that. But
that's basically the thing. Like, you know, the people who only watch WandaVision or like only watched WandaVision for the sitcom element of it were probably satisfied with the ending and was like, okay, that's fine. And they're probably not going to watch anymore. But if you're like me and you watch pretty much every single entry of the MCU, you're gonna like. You're gonna want like answers, but as you know, all the answers also come in the next. Or they always have that line in the end of the credits, and not with this one, weirdly, but they always have that line like "so and so will return in the Avengers" or something like that.
Yeah.
So if they had that, it would be Wanda Maximoff is going to return in Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness. That's what they're going to say, which is true because she is filming it right now in London,
which makes sense. That she'd be involved in that.
Yeah. I mean, she literally caused some sort of alternate reality that was madness.
Right. And didn't what's her name say that like she is more powerful than the Supreme Sorcerer, who is Doctor Strange?
Which we'll definitely get into that too.
My Doctor Strange knowledge isn't super up to speed, so correct me if I'm ever wrong.
Oh yeah. I'm not a big gigantic nerd. In like let me rephrase that. I'm not a big like Marvel nerd to where I know like the entire like mythos and lore of stuff. I'm just reacting and talking about what I've seen on this series and also relating it back to like, you know, previous entries that these characters were in. At this point we are going to say spoiler warning because the rest of the conversation is going to be about the series as a whole, what happens in the series, and what we'd like to see in the future, whether it's in regard to any of these characters or other projects that are going on in the MCU.
The MCU.
All right. So the series started out very cute. It was what's really cool about how it started in the 1960s eras of sitcoms, which its main inspiration from this was the Dick Van Dyke Show, which is confirmed because in episode 8, when we do see the reason why this whole this whole reality that Wanda created was from her love of sitcoms. And this and specifically season 2 episode 21 of the Dick Van Dyke Show, which was the one where he had a nightmare where everything was walnuts or acorns, whatever it was. But yeah, as someone who watched a lot of classic sitcoms like I Love Lucy and stuff growing up, went to my grandma's house, it was really like nostalgic and a really cool homage to those series.
They did a frighteningly good job with keeping true to how those sitcoms went while also winking at those of us who knew that something else was going on. They really kept that like level of like intrigue perfectly, in my opinion.
The first 2 episodes were the first 3 were technically all primarily in the sitcom reality. However, I would say the first 2 were the ones where like it was mainly in that reality, but you had this uneasy sensation of, wait a minute, there's something else going on here, especially at the end where the first episode when you see one of my favorite parts of this series is just the aspect ratio changing.
Yeah.
So we when in the first 3 episodes, it's shot in 4:3 format, and when they like go out of the universe, they switch it to the standard like 16:9 or cinematic quality.
Right.
And Then just lets you know, hey, you're in the real world now, or Marvel's real world.
Yeah. And like it really threw you off when like, they occasionally broke character for like just a few seconds at a time. Like when Vision's boss was choking and then there's like some fourth wall breaking going on, like stop it. And then Wanda drops her voice. She's like, Vision, help him. Like just drops her 50s voice entirely. I'm like, okay. All right. They dropped little nuggets like that early on to just remind you that like, yeah, there's some shit going on here.
And not only with like the feeling of the episode, as soon as something started like happening, like everything about the episode changed. You still had the black and white, the 4:3, but you still, the music changes like to an eerie, more cinematic quality music. The camera angle changes to no longer that sitcom on a or camera on a dolly. What? Dolly? I don't know. No longer the camera like facing toward a stage set. It's actually up close, they didn't do that in like the 50s style or the 60s. I guess it was 50s. No, it was 50s because Bewitched was the second episode and that was 60s. So
yeah, the close-up camera work wasn't really a thing until like the late 70s, 80s, I want to say. And even then it wasn't common.
And then there were just like so many like the thing that I enjoyed about especially the first episode is you're watching this and it's not a parody of these sitcoms. The sets look very similar and like the styles shot very similar, but it's its own story. But instead of like straight up parody of that like style, it was just like, let's just make another series in that style, even though we're, in 2021.
Yeah. Much.
And you also get like these little nods and stuff, and which we'll come to in a moment because there's a lot of Easter eggs throughout this series. If you're a Marvel fan, you've noticed them.
And there's a bunch that I probably didn't even pick up on. Like there's just that many of them.
I highly suggest if you guys listening or watching, I say listening because I'm so used to this being like just audio podcast format.
Right.
But if you are watching and you want to see these set Easter eggs, I'm not going to go in all details about them because there's a lot. But I know Screen Crush and New Rockstars have done Easter egg breakdowns for each episode. So check them out. You'll be surprised at a lot of them you find. And you're just like, what the heck? That's there? That's what that was?
Yeah.
So go check them out. They're a lot of fun and very entertaining too. So head on over there after you're done watching this though. Another great thing about the series is the acting. Especially in each one, you have both Vision and Wanda, Elizabeth and Paul respectively. They really are showcasing their range.
They really upped the ante.
Yeah, and I think especially for Paul because I think he was in A Knight's Tale. I believe he actually was in that movie, but for the most part, most of the movies I've seen him in were mostly like drama movies. Like he was in the Da Vinci Code. He was in
oh, that's right, that
Ransom.
Was him.
He and then when he played Jarvis, it was a little more comedic, but he was still like like very an AI
stoic,
type thing. He's very stoic. And then when he played Vision, he was also very stoic. And
the one that killed me was when he swallowed the gum. And he was like, I was just playing with these shoes. I fucking lost it. Like that whole thing. Like he fucking killed it.
I did. And I that whole second episode, I was like, he must have had a ball with that because I had a lot of favorite episodes. I had a lot of favorite episodes. If
the whole show.
But the whole show. You know what? The whole show is my favorite episode. You know what?
Because it could have all been one episode, really. With the way it tied into itself.
It could have been a long 6-hour episode.
Marvel really likes to pad the intros and the outros and the recaps and the credits, but like if you knock all that stuff down, it all would have worked as one episode.
Well, especially the credits, because I wouldn't say one episode, just because that's still a lot. That's still a lot. Like
right, but in terms of the how longest well it's connected.
Right. The longest movie they've done was Endgame, which was well over 3 hours long.
3.5.
Yep. Yeah, and I but yeah, the act. I mean, I'm so glad they're doing like these series for these characters, because they really allow you to like flesh out the characters more, because we really, aside from the little bit of flirtation that we saw in Ultron, or not Ultron, Civil War,
Civil War.
And then the connect, and like just you see that they're basically dating in Infinity War. We
Yeah.
don't really see like this
They really
like
yada
connection
yada
between them.
in between
Yeah,
Civil
it just
War and Infinity War. Yeah.
it just really became like, oh, by the way, these two are dating. And I'm like, wait,
Yeah, that
what?
kind of bugged me how in Civil War they're like the two most powerful and interesting Avengers, and they did like fuck all throughout most of Civil War. You know what I mean?
Right.
Infinity War finally gave him some treatment, which is good.
Yeah. I mean, but that is comic faithful too. I know that Vision and Scarlet Witch are they are married in the comics. So
Right.
that, I mean, if you I didn't, again, I didn't read the comics before watching these, and I actually have been. I actually went back and read the miniseries of the Scarlet Witch, which introduced Agatha Harkness, or not introduced, but she was in there too. And then I started reading Vision and Scarlet Witch. I think I've gotten through the 3rd issue so far. I'm gonna read the rest of it just because I'm very invested. Um, but yeah, I'm glad they're able to flesh out each character, like these two characters specifically, to see, to give us like, okay, how did they fall for each other? Maybe not like like the details, like when was their date, or when did he say I want to date you, or whatever thing like that. But I mean, you get to see that they do love each other.
And you saw the moments in the past where they truly connected with each other's minds because they are the Mind Stone.
Yes. Oh yeah, especially that.
And with that, we can segue to that in just in a little bit. But the way they handled addressing trauma and that kind of stuff,
Yes.
loved it.
And she's been through a lot of trauma.
Yeah, like
Whew.
like the whole sitcom stuff as like a coping mechanism, like that runs so much deeper than a lot of people probably thought. Like at first pass of that show, like when I start going into like how deeply that stuff was rooted, like in her childhood and all of her traumas, and just yeah.
And when you, and I can relate, like whenever I've been like really depressed or something, I just want to watch something funny.
Yeah.
Like something lighthearted. Like I when Friends was still on Netflix, I'd occasionally watch it every now and then. But I mean, it's, and especially these early like series, like they were more, I guess the word is more like physical humor. Like
Yeah,
especially if you
slapsticky.
remember the, yeah, slapsticky. If you remember the like the Dick Van Dyke intro, he trips over the ottoman, and I mean, of course, when the years go by, it becomes a little more like, modernized, especially at the Modern Family era, which we saw at the end, which I also thought that was kind of funny. Like they were making fun of the whole documentary type bit.
Right.
But once we get into episode 3, that's when things start getting extra weird. We get color. We're still in the 4:3 ratio, but I mean, like Wanda, who got pregnant in the 2nd episode, is now like she's on express checkout.
Yeah. Again, that was also sort of yada yada over, but again, they're in like a weird alternate, distorted reality, so it's like whatever. Let's not ask questions about that.
But I know Vision was excited to be a papaya.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but like then when we get to before we get to episode 4, we get the introduction in episode 2 of Geraldine, who we come to find out is really Monica Rambeau. And if you've not, did you see Captain Marvel?
Of course. Like, I mean,
okay,
come on, dude.
So you know who Monica is. You know Monica was Maria Rambeau's daughter.
You'd really rather sit home and watch Fresh Prince with me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or as Carol, or aka Captain Marvel, calls her, Lieutenant Trouble.
Yeah.
So and so when after she's like ejected from the reality, we get episode 4, which is the first, like, okay, you were wondering what's going on, here's what's going on. And like that entire episode was set entirely in the MCU layout, where it was more of like a little mini movie rather than, the sitcom.
Right.
And we get a contrast to Far From Home's opening scenes, where we see the reverse blip, which is what this was, what we're calling Thanos' snap.
The genuine fallout from like half the population just appearing, like the legitimate mayhem and chaos that would actually cause, after 5 years.
So when in Far From Home, when we saw that, it was a more comedic like take on it. It's like, oh, they just came out of nowhere, and like people who used to be younger are now older than you, and then they like make fun of all of that, and it's like, I don't think that would be quite as funny if it was like, like elsewhere. Like, let's say you were driving on the interstate and then you just got blipped out of existence to come back and then get hit by a car.
What if, this is something I've heard people talk about, what if you were flying in a plane when that happened and you re-blipped and you just appeared 10,000 feet in the air and did a Wile E. Coyote shrug before you just...
Yeah, or is it like one of those things like, is it in the air or in the car, or where would it be? Like, that's a scary idea.
I mean, I don't think Marvel even thought about that, to be fair. But
Marvel doesn't need to think about it.
No, I mean, like, to do that this is minutia at this point, but like, yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, we see Monica was a victim of the blip, and she was being brought back into existence, and we hear the lines from Captain Marvel that she heard from her mom, from Carol, and then we see the aftermath, like the opposite of what happened in Far From Home. We see people coming back in a panic in a hospital, and you had that guy saying, they're all coming back, we don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
And then on top of all that, she comes back and is so confused to learn that her mom died.
And when she thought she was okay, because apparently she was like treated, but then the cancer came back, so it was like a double sucker punch.
Yeah, and then we also get a reintroduction. Well, we get an introduction to Sword, which was originally the I don't remember the actual name of it in the comics, but it used to be like a galactic organization. It was like SHIELD, but for like space and stuff.
These names, like Sword, which is totally not SHIELD, like, right. Okay.
Totally not. No, not
sensing
at all.
A theme here.
But in this timeline, they're like sentient weapon observation research division, I think. And we find out Monica was part of Sword, and she's a Sword agent. And this is where we meet director Tyler Hayward, the Dick.
Comic book mustache twirling villain number 674.
I don't have a long enough mustache to do that, but but he sends her off to go to Westview for a missing persons report, and we see our boy Jimmy Woo finally learned his magic trick.
the key thing or whatever.
No, with the no, not the key, the
card,
business card. Card trick. Yeah, he finally learned it. He was learning it in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and finally got a hold on it. And then throughout that whole episode, we also get introduced to Darcy after Monica gets sucked in. I'm a fan of Kat Dennings. Like before like any of this, I liked her on Two Broke Girls, and like I think she was Nora's Infinite Playlist was the movie she was in.
See, for me, it's the opposite. I didn't like her in Two Broke Girls. I think she's a better like secondary. Like I think she adds more when she's like adding to the scene instead of like chewing it. But in WandaVision, I think when she was actually chewing the scenery and taking the stage, I think she actually did a really good job. Maybe it was just Two Broke Girls didn't tickle me, but I do like like her a lot. She was funny.
I do like that in. Can I get that coffee now, please? She did get it. She did get her coffee finally. Jimmy got her coffee.
Yeah, after
so
like 2 episodes.
That was nice of him. But yeah, so it was. She had a more important role. She's now Doctor Darcy Lewis. I almost said Dr. Darcy.
Yeah,
Dr. Darcy. Yeah, so she's moving on up in the world, and she's a little. I don't think the word is mature in this version, but I would say she's more serious.
Yeah, like,
I mean, yeah, she still makes her jokes, and she still makes her like little quips and everything, but for the most part, she's trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, her
but
role
she's
has also changed. She went from intern in Thor when we saw her. Now she's doctor, so that kind of adds a little bit of seriousness to it without changing her personality, which is silly, quirky.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I just love her little quips, especially like when she like tries to pick up the little monitor, and she's like, I got it. He just puts it on the table.
I mean, you never asked for help before you even lifted it, but yeah, okay.
It's true.
Although
I think she's just
the humor was better written with her this time around. I think in Thor, some of it was a little bit forced. In Two Broke Girls, I think a lot of the humor there was incredibly forced. But I think they did her right this time around.
I think she's also just naturally funny, though.
Yeah, she is. But part of it, you can have really good actors, but if the script and the directing is only so good, then the performance is only going to be so good. I think everything is good this time around for her.
Well, we find out from episode 4 that the Westview is emitting what's called CMBR, which are cosmic radiation waves from like the Big Bang, which we learn in episode 8. Wanda pretty much did a Big Bang, where she just like exploded her magic across the town, and started emitting these CMBR radio waves, which I find out is the reason you get like static on a television. So remember, like whenever like you had like a channel on TV you didn't get, it was like just static and made that noise and stuff.
Yeah,
that's what it is. So
I mean, it's like solar radiation waves that come out of the sun. If you were to put a sound to that, it would sound exactly like that, pretty much.
Yeah, and it's jarring as fuck and wakes anyone up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. But I do. I just went blank for a minute. My bad.
It happens.
Weird. But
it is getting late.
Well, the one thing about episode 4 is it's pretty much like, a nod to everyone who's trying to figure out what's going on, because I mean that's what Sword's doing. Especially Jimmy Woo and Darcy are basically the ultimate fanboy and girl in this situation.
Right.
Like even at one point, like Darcy was like, twins, oh what a twist.
Yeah, I like how they occasionally like poked fun at like, the fans and the fan base and even the Redditors. Like, where was that scene with who was Monica talking to? I only saw each episode once, so I don't have everything like completely memorized. Where when they first were talking about Wanda, she's the only one who came close to taking out Thanos, and the one guy's like, "Oh, you could argue that Captain Marvel got pretty close." I'm like,
"Oh yeah, he was." That was Jimmy Woo telling her that.
Oh, yeah.
Which is there's another important note that we'll discuss here in a moment, but we also get a look in that episode of what actually happened when Monica was ejected. Like it was just basically it was did I say Wanda? Yeah, Monica ejected. Wanda this first time we actually see Wanda's like orbs of red in this episode. Like before it was either invisible or it was just like a red poof of smoke. This time it's now actual like magic that we see, and she just yeeted her through walls all across New Jersey. But then when Vision comes in, we see when she turns, we see a dead Vision, and it's like, oh, that scared the hell out of me when that
was jarring. Yeah,
it's like, whoa. Oh God.
But it really helped punch through, the sitcominess that we have been seeing. It really helped ground it. Like, oh shit, like she's really grappling with a lot of trauma. You know, and just because she's hiding in the sitcom world doesn't mean it's gone away at all. I think has been addressed many times.
We actually get 2 really great acting moments from Elizabeth Olsen. We get one in episode 4 and episode 8. In 4, we get really great comedy from her, especially like her body language, like body comedy of like when she's pregnant and she's doing it.
And the shit with the stork.
And the stork, yeah. And then funny. Like when Vision goes after Tommy's born, he goes to kiss her and she just goes, ah!
Like, I mean, like that kind of stuff, like it's cliche, but it's still funny.
Oh, it's great. My favorite thing is watching people react to that, and like when she screams, she goes, ah! And then you see the people reacting like, ah!
Because it catches you off guard. Like you know it's gonna happen, but you also don't know because you don't expect that from Scarlet Witch. Right? We've never seen. Because I mean, the whole sitcom character of her is obviously different from anything we've seen, but it just kept diving further into. It kept playing on our expectations. Like that's how you subvert expectations. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I like it.
So in episode 5, we get Full House. We get Full House, Family Ties. I think Family Ties, and Growing Pains. And I didn't watch Full House when I was growing up. I watched Growing Pains, and they really caught. Full House? No, I wasn't in. Well, it was in the late 80s is when it came out.
Late 80s, 90s, yeah.
Yeah, and I was born in 90.
I
I
was
might
born
go
in
back and watch it.
97,
Like,
and I used to watch it, man. Like,
well, I might go back and watch it. Don't have a
you got it,
connection.
dude.
You got it, dude. Which is a connection to Olsen because her sisters, Mary Kate and Ashley, were one of the characters in that show.
It's amazing how many people don't know that she's one of those Olsens.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially when you see the younger photos of her, which are actually her when she was younger. She could see the similarities.
Yeah,
like she's definitely related to them, and she also starred not starred, but she was also in some of Mary Kate and Ashley's like home videos like that they did back in the day.
yeah.
One of them was there was a Christmas video. I think it was the Mysteries with Mary Kate and Ashley. They did I remember it. I remember I had seen Elizabeth Olsen and I didn't even know it was her at the time. But like I watched the video and it was one of the Olsens like unwrapping the Christmas lights from their younger sister. And there's like, yeah, decorating for Christmas can be a pain, especially when our little sis Lizzie is around. And you just see Elizabeth Olsen spinning, stuck in the lights.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. It's like, careful. That girl's going to have chaos magic in the future. Beware.
Yeah, pretty much. I think everyone can agree that she's the best Olsen.
Yeah, well, I don't want to say the best. I don't really have pick favorites or anything.
Okay, you don't have to put that in the recording if you don't want to.
Do that,
but between you and me, no, everyone will agree. That's the point. Everybody knows she's the best.
Oh, okay. We'll not edit this.
Up to you, man.
Anyways, but despite that, we do get. Oh, I mean, I mean, going blank again. Hold on.
It's okay. It's getting late.
Yeah, but we do get in this episode we get like the twins are being aged up, and we also get that little scene between Agnes, excuse me, because she's not Agatha at this point. We get Agnes doing that. Do you want me to take that again? Because apparently that's not what Wanda wanted to do or something.
Yeah, there's a few moments like that kind of made you go like, wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, we already knew something was going on, so to see that happen is like, okay, so the world's kind of breaking a tad at this point. I mean, Vision's now at the point where he's like, I am aware. I mean, he was starting to be aware with it in like the second episode.
Yeah.
But
which, can we just adjust that really quick? That was the first time we ever saw Vision like express any sort of anger at Wanda.
Oh,
like,
yes.
Just where he starts levitating off the floor. It's like, I don't remember my life before Westview. And she's just like, you've never spoken to me like that. And I'm like,
yeah, that was a really jarring moment.
And I'm like, yeah, more of this shit, please.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
We also get Billy and Tommy aged up to 5 and then 10 years old after. Was it 4 or 5? I don't remember their first age, but
yeah.
The actors who played in multiple episodes were like 10 years old in there for their characters. And I mean, I don't want to say I was shocked that they aged them up that quick, but like that's interesting that they just like gave him that ability. It's like, oh, you don't want us to have a dog until we're 10? Well, guess what? We're gonna age to 10, so we're gonna care for this dang dog.
Yeah, like I was thinking to myself, like, was that clever or was that just like a handy screenwriter trick for let's get them older? Like, I couldn't figure out if it was creative or not.
I think it is explained a bit in the comics too. But
oh, it actually happened like in the.
I don't know. I didn't read too much into that because those characters in the comics were shards of Mephisto, and Mephisto is the basically Satan in the Marvel universe.
Right. I keep forgetting there's deeper lore.
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't scratched the surface of anything in Marvel comics, so.
Right.
I don't know what's going on. I just see all the speculations, which one of the theories is that not everyone, a lot of people thought Mephisto was going to be the big bad in this season or series. But thinking back on it, yeah, you had a lot of like nods to it, or like there were things that made you think, oh, this means Mephisto is going to pop up, and
it just turns out a later property.
Exactly, and that would be a better payoff, because if you just have Mephisto come up in the episode and then do nothing, it's just like, well, why did we build him up this long?
Well, Marvel's really good at building things up and then addressing them in later IPs, so I'm sure we'll see.
I mean, like for Thanos, we didn't get an introduction to Thanos until Avengers in the first post-credit scene, and he didn't actually have he wasn't like he was in. I think it was either Guardians of the Galaxy 1 or 2.
I think it was the first. Yeah, it was Avengers. It was the first Guardians, and then at the end of Age of Ultron. Yeah.
Like he showed up like in an actual scene in the movie, not a post-credit scene, or mid-credit scene. But then we didn't actually get like full-on Thanos until Infinity War and Endgame,
which was basically just Thanos the movie.
Yeah, Thanos,
which I'm fine with that
because
he was great. I can't remember the guy who played him. I can't remember.
Josh Brolin.
Yeah,
that guy
fucking killed it.
He was also Cable in Deadpool. So he was 2 Marvel characters.
I barely watched Deadpool. It didn't really tickle my fancy.
Or second Deadpool, excuse me. But
and the mocap for Thanos in Infinity War compared to like the scenes that we saw him in the previous movies was fucking stellar. Like he looked real, dare I say.
Oh yeah, he looked really.
Like it was kind of goofy in the previous movies, but like they really took that technology to the next level within just a couple of years. It was really impressive.
Yes. So in episode 5, we also, like I said, it was the first episode where we get a cut between the real world and the sitcom reality, and in this point we see the scenes where Tyler Hayward, he shows the footage of Wanda breaking into the facility and stealing the Vision's body, and we find out later this is just a ploy to make people think that Wanda is the villain of this episode, which can be, or the series, which can be argued that she kind of is.
You can
like I then again, I wouldn't even say kinda. I would say she's a villain of the series, not the.
She's certainly not a hero.
She's not the only villain.
Yeah, she's certainly not a hero.
But we'll discuss that towards the end. But it's also the episode where we see that exchange between Monica and Jimmy, where Jimmy's like, well, I bet Captain Marvel could have stopped Thanos, and then Monica's like trying to move away from that conversation, which makes me think there was some bad blood between her and Carol.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure when Monica inevitably gets her own show, we'll figure that out.
I don't know if it's her own show, but there's speculation that she's going to be in Secret Invasion with Samuel L. Jackson. So
I mean, off the top of my head, my speculation as to her bad blood there is like, she wasn't there when my mom was sick, and she said she'd always be there for us. It's probably gonna be something like that. Some abandonment type.
She will be in Captain Marvel 2, though.
Oh, that's right. They're making a second one.
Yep, they're making a second one, and they're also making a Ms. Marvel, which I'll explain that later if you don't know it.
Sorry.
So we also have this scene where they discover that anything that goes in is their matter changes, but their composition still stays the same. So that's why when Monica went in, she was wearing a bulletproof vest, but it got fused into her 70s outfit. And when she tried to shoot it, or when she shot it, it just recoiled the bullets, which meant everything that goes in, it's still technically what you wore. It's just reconfigured for the time. And then they send in an 80s drone so they can actually control it while they're inside.
Yeah.
And then during this whole that whole sequence, Wanda finally comes out and has her accent back. Like, hey, there it is.
I like how they poked fun at that later. I'm like, that accent really comes and goes, doesn't it?
Yes.
That's just all the fans. Thank you.
Thank you, Pietro. But we do see, but speaking of Pietro, at the end of the episode, right before then, we see that the dog that the boys got in the episode was or died, and we later learned she was murdered.
Dun dun dun.
But we get this scene where there's this confrontation between Vision and Wanda, because Vision went and awoken Norm to find out that he's being controlled by someone. He doesn't say who it is. He just says she's controlling him. And
the pronoun game, gotta love it.
Yeah. And Wanda's like, I don't know how any of this started. I don't know. And she really kind of doesn't, because she's blocking out that trauma. And so she needs help with it. But before any of that happens, the doorbell rings. And we open the door and find out not only is it Pietro, it's the Quicksilver from the Fox universe in the X-Men series. And
let
me tell you, the ripple of what that came across the screen when or the internet when people learned about this was crazy, because people was like, "Oh my god, the X-Men, it's happening! They're coming!"
Yeah.
And then we find out at the end it's all just for a boner joke. So that was great.
Yeah.
But that was still, at the time, that was like, what the what?
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really big into X-Men, but even I was like, okay, just gonna roll with this.
And I thought like they did like, I mean, it is a trope of sitcoms where they will randomly recast a character. I know they did that for Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. They randomly recast the ant, and so even Darcy was like, she recast Pietro?
Yeah.
And when we get to the next episode, in the previously on WandaVision, we see when Monica says he was killed by Ultron, we see Aaron Taylor Johnson's Pietro, which is the one that was in Age of Ultron, and then we cut to Evan Peters' Pietro, which is basically Marvel going, we know what you're saying, we're addressing it,
right?
Keep watching.
Right.
Then we get the Malcolm in the Middle episode, that was fun. That one was very fun to watch, because we don't get the laugh track anymore, so that's gone.
Wait, which one was the Malcolm in the Middle one?
It's the one where it was the Halloween episode.
Oh. Yeah.
We get Wanda in her very kind of comic faithful look of the Sokovian fortune teller. Not the
actual everybody's gonna be wearing that next Halloween.
Fuck out of that. So yeah, I think they will. And then you see Vision come down in his very Vision faithful, like, except for the boxer shorts. So in the comics, Vision was originally green and yellow. And then over time they changed the colors, but this he's basically a luchador in this one. I like how, like, she speaks Spanish to him, he doesn't understand why, and so he just goes chili con carne.
Yeah, that made me, as someone who took Spanish for like 10 years, I'm like, oh god, why is this happening? But it was funny. I liked it. It was good.
Vision didn't do immersion.
Yeah.
he can't do it. I gotta say though, Evan Peters is an amazing actor too. So him playing this series Quicksilver was very enjoyable, because I've seen him in American Horror Story. I haven't really seen him in X-Men. I need to watch X-Men. I already know people are gonna comment like, what, you haven't seen it? But he's very talented, and a funny little piece of trivia. Both him and Aaron Taylor Johnson, both Quicksilvers, were in the movie Kick-Ass.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they starred in a movie together. So
I mean, I haven't seen that movie in ages, but
so in this episode, Vision finally I don't know what happened here. Hold on a second.
Are you
okay,
still
we're good.
rolling?
We're good.
Okay.
We'll edit that out later. Vision in this episode goes off to see what's going on in the town, if there's anything weird going on, and starts seeing people glitching. And you see that, especially that one lady who was just like going back and forth with the string, and you see that tear come down her eye.
That's when it kind of started to get real again.
Yeah, and a little scary too.
Yeah.
It's like, that's creepy. And then before he runs into Agnes, he sees people just frozen.
That was creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also notice only episode children were in. There were no other episode. There wasn't any other children. Which was explained in the last episode too, which we'll get to. And then Vision goes to talk to Agnes, and she says, "Oh, but you're dead. You're dead." And then's like, "Wanda won't let us leave or think about it or anything like that." And then Vision's like, "I'm leaving this reality. I want to see what's on the other side."
That worked out well for him.
That did not go well for him.
Yeah. Which kind of plays into what what's his name, Clint, said to Vision in Civil War. It's like, you can't overpower me. I know, but she can. You know, it really reminds you like who the real powerhouse is here. You know.
Yeah. And then we get, and then outside that, Monica confronts Hayward. It's like, why the hell did you do that? Why'd you shoot at her? Like, who shoots at Scarlet Witch? Like, how dumb are you?
I mean, opening fire on, I'd say, about 70% of the Avengers is just a bad idea.
Like, why do people think that's a good idea? Like, I don't know, I could shoot him, and I think I'll get him. No, you won't.
I mean, what's almost just as funny is when any Avenger pulls out a gun. It's like, really? Like, you get these super enhanced human beings, and you've got an Uzi? Wow.
Well, Black Widow kind of has to.
Well, Widow's got the Glock. Yeah, Widow's got a Glock. Falcon's got Uzi.
But her body is a weapon, though, too, so she doesn't need the guns to do it. She can use her body as well.
Yeah, she's kind of like a Kmart Captain America with guns.
Okay, no.
I'm kidding. I love Black Widow.
No.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, I just felt a shift in the mood.
The YouTube comments.
Oh no.
They're like, oh, like none of us can punch and
kick.
Guys,
send your complaints to aj9lives@gmail.com.
No, that's not a real email address.
Okay, aj9lives on Twitter. I will have it for you during the episode. All right. But anyways, so Hayward's just like, it was good that you weren't around when your mom died because you don't have the stomach for this, and just kicks him out. And I'm like, you're just proving more and more that you're even a worse person than ever. And not only that. No, sorry.
It just seemed like unnecessarily cruel. Like, I mean, I get it. We're not supposed to like him, but like, was that really necessary for us to not like him? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it just seemed a little over the top. Like, damn, dude. Like, where'd that even come from?
I already didn't like him. And
right. We're not supposed to like him.
More. So, but yeah. Other than that, also during that episode, we got teased about a aerospace engineer that Monica knew, and like people were like, Reed Richards, Fantastic Four, Mr. Fantastic. And it wasn't. It was right. It was just a army friend or soldier friend. So, which before we tie into that, we get at the end of episode 5, as Vision is just basically coming apart. That's before that, actually, the twins get powers. Like, Tommy gets his speed powers because he is Speed in the comics, and Billy gets his Wiccan powers. That's because that's his in comic name. And Wiccans awakens when he hears his dad in pain, dying, and he runs to his mom and tells him what happens. And then Pietro says that, "Oh, don't sweat it, babe. It's not like your husband can die twice."
Yeah, your dead husband can't die twice. And I'm like, what, bruh?
It's like, now you just proved how much of a dick you are too, and just he flies away, which I found it fitting that he landed in a graveyard.
He didn't fly away. She literally she threw him.
She's like threw him away,
like,
and then she
off.
just like, we're expanding this. So
I didn't think she expanded. I thought she literally just moved it.
No, she expanded it.
I thought she like pulled the Patrick Star. Let's take Westview.
It was like
and
a circle. Because when you see Westview, like in the next episode, it's much bigger, and you see a more hexagonal shape to it. No, it expanded. It expanded. So not only did she take Vision back in, she also got Darcy and many sword agents, and then we get to episode 6. She kind of pokes fun of that in the little not episode 6, 7. She pokes fun of that where it does that, the interview in the middle of the sitcom, like
breaking the fourth wall or whatever.
Yeah, breaking the fourth wall. And this one, we start to see that she's starting to lose control. And
or even the interviewer wasn't cooperating. Like, you're not supposed to talk.
Yeah. Which, interesting enough, that was actually Catherine Hahn who was interviewing her. So, who was Agnes, by the way.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, they actually pitched her voice down.
Yeah, I like those little attention to detail things that just subtly remind you that Wanda is like falling apart mentally.
Yes,
so, like, even her own
thing
that she created and is controlling isn't even cooperating with her anymore. Good personification of her inability to deal.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we get to when we cut back to Vision, we see that he's now in a circus area, which is funny how she basically made all the shield or sword agents clowns.
Yeah.
Which That was great.
That was pretty funny. And how even when Darcy was under the mind spell or whatever, she still wasn't like terribly different from the Darcy that we knew.
Oh no.
Like,
no.
oh, Darcy.
She was basically the same. I'm glad he like cut her strings though.
Yeah, that would have been weird.
Funny enough, I like how it's a slight nod to Ultron, because you remember from Age of Ultron, Ultron did this little song thing where he did the Pinocchio "There Ain't No Strings on Me" song, where he would sing that, and it's kind of funny how like when he does this, it kind of like is like they're cutting the strings off a puppet, because at this point, everyone who's in the Hex is basically Wanda's puppet, with the exception of Vision, the twin, well, even Vision to an extent.
To a point,
but the twins she cannot control, as we've seen in episode 5,
but she doesn't really have to, because they were kind of spawned from what she was controlling. So you know what I mean. So she doesn't really have to, conveniently enough.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
So after he cuts her, aside from that story arc, Agnes takes the kids to just watch them while their mom's having this breakdown, and then we cut to outside the Hex, where Jimmy and Monica are meeting with the aerospace engineer. We don't even know if that's actually the space engineer. We just know that they sent her something. So they bring out this moon rover, and they've customized it to go through the Hex. She suits up, tries to go through, and doesn't work because.
Of course, it wasn't going to work.
Was never going to work. Right. But we get this awesome sequence though, with Monica going through and having like all of her realities, or like all of her realities like split apart. And then when she finally hears Carol's line about the toughest, gave her the toughest child, she merges all of them together and becomes who is essentially either Photon or Spectrum, which is the name of her character in the comics.
Right.
So she gets through unfazed. Well, I wouldn't say unfazed.
Unharmed.
She's unharmed or unchanged per se. Like, she went through the Hex twice already, and from what we've seen, her DNA had something special about it to begin with, and the fact that she went through a third time just awoken her abilities, almost like she had an X gene.
Right.
But anyways, so she gets through and she goes to confront Wanda, and Wanda doesn't want to hear anything about it. But finally, Monica's able to prevent her from throwing her out again, because she has her own powers now.
And getting yeeted
she almost gets through to her, and then Agnes comes in and just was like, "Run along, dear. We don't need you here." And then we get this awesome reveal. Like, we go into Agnes's house, and they're like, and Wanda's like, "Where are the kids? Oh, they're probably in the basement." And when she goes in the basement, you'll notice that when she enters into that room in the basement, the aspect ratio shifts again. And that just indicates that she's not in Westview at this point. She's in some other realm or something. And she goes in and she sees the book, which we come to find out is the Darkhold, or the Book of the Damned.
The Book of the Damned.
And then we get my favorite song in the entire series, Agatha All Along.
They really indulged in how goofy and cheesy they wanted certain things to be, and they loved it. Yeah, and another fact, just to prove how great Catherine Hahn is, she also sang in that. So the singer who went, "It's been Agatha all along," that's Catherine Hahn. So wow. She had so much fun with this character. She's a treasure to begin with.
And that'll do it for part 1 of this discussion on WandaVision. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for part 2 on After the Fact, where we go into more detail on what we liked about WandaVision and getting ready for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But until then, don't forget to like and favorite this video and subscribe to Kavo Reacts for more reactions and discussions on this channel. Thank you so much for watching. You have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. Bye.